Welcome back to the Conversation Starters podcast. My name is Pume Dlamini, and today we are speaking about a new solution that SAP has just developed, and we're going to delve into it. We're going to talk about some customers' cases. We are going to really break this down and make sure that you guys understand. It is called the Raw Sourcing Management Cloud-Based Solution. All right. So let me explain this a little bit. This solution aims to help agricultural businesses and organizations connect with smallholder farmers. It sounds weird, right? From SAP, enterprise software business. How did this come about? But we're going to talk about how this happened and what are the trends that we are seeing in the market and why this solution is so important. In our African context, it is a huge part of our business. We know that in Africa, agricultural businesses are huge. They are part of 20 to 30% of our GDP in sub-Saharan Africa. In South Africa alone, we've had about a 17% growth in our agricultural business. There is a lot happening in this area, and we're going to delve into why SAP decided to work on the solution. So before I talk any further, I've got two people with me on the call. I have got Tanya and Karsten. I'm going to ask you guys to just quickly introduce yourself and what you do with this particular product. So Tanya, I'm going to start with you.
Happy and very nice to meet you, Spoomy, on this podcast this morning. My name is Tanya Reit. I've been with SAP for more than 20 years. For the last 10 years, I spent my time in the industry business unit agribusiness. SAP is serving 26 industries, and agribusiness is definitely one of them. During this time, I had the pleasure to launch SAP Rural Sourcing Management to the market together with Karsten, who is with me on this podcast today. And it really is exciting because it brings together, let's say, different aspects. First of all, it's our passion to work in the technology space. And we can help really to improve the profitability of our customers, the traditional SAP customers. But at the same time, looking at the target audience we are talking about today, about smallholder farmers, we can also make our contribution and improve their lives really with the technology that we are providing. Maybe that was already a little bit of a long introduction. Sorry for that.
Thank you, Tanya. Karsten?
Yeah, I'm so happy to join this podcast. I've been working alongside Tanya for many years on the solution. I used to be a product manager at SAP. I was also more than 20 years with SAP. And then we realized at some stage we need a global implementation capacity. The solution grew and the customer base grew. I took the opportunity to join a long-standing SAP partner, MSG, the MSG group, and there I'm now part of MSG Global and working on this aspect.
Yeah. And we're going to talk a little bit about the partners and how they can get involved in this solution. Tanya, you already started alluding to it, and I love, just from what you're saying, it's already sounding to me like this product was built on the back of supporting customers and addressing some of the solutions they have. But I just want to talk about global trends. Why now? Why are we doing this, and why is this product so important? Like I said, in our context, immediately when I heard about it, I could understand why we would need it in the South African context, in the African context. But what has SAP seen that has allowed you guys to really work on this product?
Let me start with a couple of macro trends we are seeing all over the world, and I think that does not come with a surprise. So first of all, the population will increase by 10 billion people by 2050. And I think the big challenge is that the agricultural output would theoretically need to double, which means that farmers need to increase the yield. But the cultivable land does not increase at the same portion. It rather decreases if you think about problems such as deforestation. Yeah. So that is the one big thing. So farming needs to become more efficient, but also more sustainable. And where does the sustainability aspect comes from? So that's the second big trend that we are seeing. Consumer behavior is really changing. So end consumers, they really want to be able to trust in their products. They want to know that their products are not impacted by child labor. They don't want to have affected by deforestation. They also want to make sure that their products are produced, in a healthy way. So they want to be sure that there's not too big deployment of fertilizers and things. So there is a big trend on bio and biological farming.
Yeah.
So this ultimately leads into that farming needs to become more efficient and more sustainable. We are serving, let's say, agribusiness companies really from the farm to consume value chain. So it really starts with the input of agricultural products, like companies like seed providers, the producers of fertilizers. It really goes into the big agricultural producers, big sugar companies in the States, big trading companies, like you see them all over the world, but then really also the whole value chain until the wholesale, retail, and going to the end consumer. So these are, let's say, the typical SAP customers.
Customers, yes.
But if you look at the agribusiness value chain, many of the agricultural products, think about the t-shirt you are wearing, the cup of coffee you are enjoying in the morning, or the piece of chocolate you're having in the afternoon. These are agricultural commodities that do have their origin in very often in developing countries, such as Ghana, for example, and other African countries. This is where the first mile of these agricultural products are. They are really grown up by smallholder farmers. And if our customers, if they want to provide the traceability up to this first mile, they are looking for tools to achieve this traceability. That is the motivation for SAP to help them with technology.
So we go back to this point of connecting the smallholder farmer to the agribusiness and the big guys that we deal with at the end of the day,
Absolutely.
but understanding where this starts from. So I want to understand SAP as a software now. So we know SAP, we've been working with SAP for not as long as 20 years. I want to know how you guys fit in the technology. How do you leverage the technology to build this particular product? So I just want to understand from the SAP perspective, how this fits into your business as SAP.
Absolutely. SAP is known as the traditional ERP vendor, right? And especially for manufacturing companies, processing industries, and coming from the ERP side of the house with HR, finance, and controlling.
Yeah.
We are the largest enterprise software vendor.
Yeah.
But we are not only providing these LOB solutions, we also invest in industry-specific applications to really cover industry-specific processes. And that is also true for the agribusiness industry. One would be surprised that SAP is offering a couple of agribusiness-specific applications to help with farm management, digital farming, and traceability. Yeah. And that is really exactly this traceability aspect has been the motivation for SAP to bring a product that was originally developed in a CSR project together with the German Federal Ministry for Development Cooperation and make it an SAP solution. It adds value to add industry-specific processes. I would say that traceability up to the first mile to the smallholder farmer is an industry process that we can add to the standard offering as a cloud ERP vendor.
Yeah, makes perfect sense. And so Tanya, I just want to stop here a little bit, get into the system itself.
Absolutely.
Carsten, you are now with a partner, which means you are properly invested and know all about the implementation and what this looks like for the actual customer. So just talk to me about what it is. We've traced back why it's happening, why SAP has decided to productize this, but what is it really? Can you explain to me in very simple terms so that businesses can understand why they need this or if they even do need this?
Yeah, I'm happy to follow up on what Tanya has said about the smallholder farmers. And what does this actually mean, a smallholder farmer managing and working with smallholder farmers on an equal level, right? First of all, it means dealing with a lot of individuals. Our average mid-sized company would maybe be dealing with 30,000 smallholder farmers. The aspect to it is that your typical smallholder farmer did not have that same level of education as you and I might be living hovering around the poverty line, might have technological challenges that are not relevant to commercial farming, etc. Right? So the solution needs to be accessible in a very inaccessible space. That's why we said it needs to be a cloud solution with a very strong mobile component, right? And that's in the end what we developed. And the solution basically supports, I would say, two areas. The one is kind of obvious. It's supporting the actual business steps, like preparing a field, tracking what inputs are received, tracking the activities on the field, harvesting, logistics, processing in the field or in a processing plant until it reaches either export or touches other systems that a processor might have or that a mid-sized company might have. But the other side is managing and engaging with smallholders. That means, first of all, getting more information about the smallholders and giving that smallholder a voice. So it means like registering all those farmers, mapping the farms so that we have a digital representation of those mini plots. And just remember, we are talking about very small sites, maybe an acre, half a hectare. And we might be doing socioeconomic surveys with this farm. Someone might be giving agricultural advice to this farm. And we want to track the effect of that in terms of production, in terms of quality, etc. That's the huge differentiator to your classical agricultural farm management software, that we're really focusing on the smallholder. The smallholder is really the common denominator of this solution. The solution is rather crop agnostic. So it has a very strong configurability attached to it. And it comes from way back when we did our first pilots. At that stage, it was an R&D project in the area of cashew. And we were successful. So we said, let's tackle some new challenges. And we were in shea nut, also known as karité. It's used, for example, in lotions. And we thought, okay, but we're dealing with smallholders, sourcing crops from smallholders, and yet everything is different. We need a new system.
Yeah.
But as we went along, and we went with cocoa, we went with other nuts, coffee, palm oil, we developed something. What SAP typically does is best business practices.
Yeah.
The smallholder really is the common denominator. Everything around it can be configured, tuned, customized. There is a reason why a smallholder in Mozambique is doing things differently than maybe someone in Southeast Asia. The solution itself, then, basically, it's really about digitizing this first mile, right? All these different business processes. Why are we doing this? The first thing is, of course, we're standardizing. We're standardizing it to the extent that it makes sense. We are helping with simple, where someone in past days would have had a calculator and a piece of paper, very often paper-based systems that we are replacing with some Excel component to it. The other thing, of course, is making visible something which was previously not visible. It's like a digital track record of someone who was previously known as the unbanked, the not connected. And why do we want to do this? Digital traceability, digital visibility. Well, first of all, it's the basis for anything related to sustainability. You need to have a knowledge of what has happened in the field. It's the basis for any kind of certification scheme, for any kind of organic production. So we need this traceability.
Yeah.
But on the other side, this is also something that helps the farmer to be a recipient of further services, such as financial services. And a very basic example, which has also been used in the past with a lot of effort in the sector, is inputs on credit. A smallholder farmer cannot afford buying inputs at the beginning of the season. So these need to be supplied. And for the whole system to be sustainable, the cost of it also need to be deducted at a certain stage during mostly, after harvest. So that's why we're doing this. The solution needs to support these aspects. And the solution comes in three different modules. There's on one hand the mobile component, a field device that's being held in the hand of a field facilitator, of a field agent, of an agronomist. So typically with one phone, maybe 200, 300, 400 farmers are served. This phone does not need to be top-notch quality. It can be your $100 phone that will easily then fulfill the technical requirements and the recommended specifications. The solution, and this mobile solution, is very configurable. So the end user only sees those features that are relevant. It's easily accessible, has a nice UI, etc. And also, I only look after the farmers that I'm supposed to look after. So we need to make sure that we use the limited bandwidth in a clever way, right? There's a sophisticated synchronization mechanism to ensure that the solution works completely offline.
Okay.
We assume mainly offline, occasionally online, maybe in the evening or when at cooperative head office.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's the one component. The other component is the administrator backend, as I would call it. And this is simply, from a user perspective, a website. I can log on, I can manage my smallholder farmer, the master data. I can plan my input distribution, data collection in terms of surveys, but maybe also plotting the fields, etc. I can also manage my users, assign roles, etc. The solution is GDPR compliant. We are a European company. Data privacy and protection is a huge topic that we care a lot about, which requires certain features, such as, for example, if a smallholder leaves the system, at some stage the data is forgotten. Another important point regarding data is the ownership of our clients. We are a cloud solution, but the SAP DNA, we are supporting sometimes competitors with our solution. The data belongs to our clients.
Yeah.
Having mentioned those two modules, the third one is really about making use of the data. So it's about the analytics. We actually use SAP Analytics Cloud. It's a solution that's being used all over the SAP portfolio for anything cloud. It has not only a reporting capability, but also an authoring environment. So I can create my own customized reports after having received, a set of standard reports, etc. And in this combination, our needs are fulfilled for each type of user and different business requirements. Let's make this a little bit more concrete. I will use an illustration. We really thought, how can we make this accessible and, down to earth and that people can relate to it? And I think this illustration does a perfect job at that. It puts smallholder farmers at the center of things. You see a village, some areas where crops are grown. In this specific instance, it's coffee. You see someone bringing crops from a little bit further, and you see some of those typical business processes. What the illustration also does, it kind of shows, yes, there are villages, but we have a lot of villages, right? And they might be falling under some more regional structure. In the center of this illustration, you will see a warehouse and a nursery. And again, there might be several regional centers, warehouses, nurseries, which then feed back to something that is right at the end of this illustration. This is a more formal structure. So this could be a mid-sized company sourcing a specific crop. It could be an exporter. It could be a subsidiary of a multinational, right? And now, how does the solution work? So let's start right at the top. It will start with an operations manager or an IT administrator having to set up his sourcing structure. You model a sourcing structure that allows you to model this, hierarchical system where you have maybe farmers, farmer groups, regions, and then your top node, but also things like physical structures. It can be the depot in the field or the collection center, it can be a warehouse, a processing center, or a factory. And you can attach roles and users so that certain people at these facilities can do certain things. And it links up with what people did at other parts of this hierarchy. So that's one important thing. And then you maintain your different crops, you can maintain certifications, you can then, of course, maintain your farmers. Typically, a project starts with a set of thousands or 10,000 of smallholders, maybe in an Excel already. So we maintain that master data. We decide on what data fields we want to have, etc. So it's very flexible. We can also plan certain things at this stage. So as I mentioned, there's a tool for planning the activities of the field staff as they visit the farmers, as they do things in the field. We can plan our input provision. We can plan our trainings, defining trainings, assigning them to specific time slots and to specific farmers that should then benefit from these trainings, right? We can plan inspections. Internal inspection is the first step of any kind of certification. So we need to track, run questionnaires, etc. And there will always be incompliances, right? This enormous amount of smallholders, and our constant goal is to reduce those incompliances. And so for that, we have a module. Now, let's look more in on the field side. Let's come back to the illustration here. And again, this depicts an example configuration, right? So we made up some normal rules that you would have. You might have someone who's registering farmers in the field. So you might have someone, an agronomist, who might plot those maps and make sure that we have the information needed also for analysis in terms of risks related to deforestation, etc. And we have those things like grower agreements. Very important thing, this contract that stipulates the relationship between the offtake and the responsibilities on both sides. What inputs am I allowed to use? What minimum price will I be paying? These things, right? You might then have someone else, and it shows here someone who is more supporting during the season based on his activity planning, tracking the field activities of those farmers to see what has been done. Is there protection against fire? What are the activities, even up to tracking the hours of informal seasonal workers? Anything raising an input request, doing that internal inspection that's needed to improve the productivity and the quality. You might have someone else who is doing trainings. Everybody agrees trainings are important. But it's so difficult to track the output of training. So we want to make sure that we can track the attendance of smallholders at a specific training as we go along. As, for example, on the right-hand side, we are recording the crop receipts. We are loading these crops onto a truck. It ends up somewhere at a warehouse, maybe. And we see here an example where it's offloaded and where quality is tracked. These are some of the roles. I will not go too much into detail regarding the nurseries. The same way as you can buy a coffee bean, you can also buy a plantlet. You can have someone grow plantlets and distribute them to the smallholders. It's the same processes that can be used to manage this kind of. But in the end, the crop end up at a factory. We might support some processing, standardization, etc., also in field. But there we have it, the full traceability, so that someone can report on that and lay the digital foundation for further tracing right to the end consumer, maybe at that.
Looking at this illustration, the first thing that comes to my mind is I wonder how people have been doing this for so long. You were talking earlier about thousands of these smallholder farmers. And now, Tanya, to your point around traceability, we're talking in a world of ESG, right? There's a lot of reporting. People want to understand exactly what came from and what is put into this. What is our impact on the world as we are creating this product? It seems so important to have it. And it seems like it's just the right product when we're talking about agricultural businesses. And I know that most recently, you actually moved. I think part of your move to MSG was in support of a client who was implementing this. We've spoken a lot about how it works in theory, and maybe we could just summarize and give an example of how this played out with the recent implementation that you did. And I just want to highlight that to our audience base. We know we had a SAPila conference, and I believe you also spoke about this at the SAPila conference. Maybe just a customer story and highlight for me who's paying for this, who is supposed to be responsible for this, and how did we then land it with the smallholder farmers?
Yeah, I'm happy to do that. And let's start off with a question. Who's paying this? So in the end, a conscious client buying a chocolate bar that's just a little bit more expensive, but sustainable. We are distributing these additional costs, which are part of general operational costs along the whole value chain. Also with things not, it allows you to, for example, for a multinational to invest into the smallholders and at the same time see the effect, and therefore it justifies this, right? So in the end, the smallholder does not pay for the product. It's typically the organization that is managing the sourcing scheme of specific smallholders. What kind of clients do we have? We have your classical multinational agriculture.
Yeah.
That's also the sweet spot of SAP for a long time, and they play a very important role in the industry. We support those, but we also have a lot of medium-sized SMEs. And really, we have some beautiful examples, and it's difficult to just put it into a few sentences, but you can put it into a few small, very exciting videos.
Yeah.
We have examples of a client in Uganda. They are called Agri-Evolve. We also have in West Africa an example of a company creating traceable cashew called Cashew Coast. And we also have a very nice video that you should watch. And we give a last example, also a very nice project, Kalangala Oil Palm Growers Trust. It's actually 1,000 smallholders on the Sese Islands in Lake Victoria in Uganda. Formerly fishermen were not able to make a living from that because of the depletion of fish in the lake. They have entered into the business of growing oil palm, which is very exciting because it's a very productive tree. You can earn a lot with it. And if it's managed in an environmentally responsible way, it's really a way out of poverty.
Yeah.
That video will show you exactly that. Have a look at that.
Yeah, we're going to sum this up now because you don't ever want a long podcast. I'm going to take it back to you, Tanya, to talk about the partners and getting partners involved. We know that SAP works with partners all the time. So I want to ask, what is the strategy around the partners and how can partners get involved if they want to, if they're excited about this and want to offer it to their own customers?
Yeah, absolutely. The open SAP partner ecosystem is a big part of our strategy. And specifically for this product, for SAP Rural Sourcing Management, we are heavily relying on working together with our partner community. Because as you can imagine, the one thing is the IT setup. Let me call it still the implementation, even if we are in a cloud environment. I think it's also about, as Carsten previously mentioned, understanding the business processes of the individual customer. Even though our customer, the licensor, can be a big agricultural company, in many cases it's a cooperative on-site deploying the software. And there may be a language barrier, there may be the understanding of the industry processes, of the crop-specific processes. This is where we are working with local implementation partners to bring the software into the farmer community, to train the field agents, how to manage the software and how to engage then ultimately with the smallholder farmers.
Yeah.
Also on the technical side, how Carsten mentioned, maybe even partners go into the role and host a cloud system for the cooperative. I think there are many opportunities, specifically since this is a software that ultimately needs to address the specific processes of the cooperative. And that is where we are definitely heavily relying on our partners, because that would not be a business where SAP services and SAP consulting would be active. It's rather the business of our partner ecosystem.
Yeah. Well, there's certainly no doubt about the fact that this product is needed and required. It was built off the base. I think you mentioned it was actually part of our CSI project and it was productized from that. There's no question around whether partners can still get involved and if this would go into the normal runnings of SAP, as we would say, the role of the partner being very prominent in the implementation. And also the fact that it's changing lives. It is actually, to Carsten's examples, making a huge impact and changing the lives of smallholder farmers and also allowing for the traceability and the standardization for the bigger organizations that are in the agribusiness. So I'm super excited about this, and I hope that this podcast is doing what it's intended to do, which is start a conversation around how you can support this as a partner, how you can use it as a customer if this is what you want to do, and also how you can be a part of it as a consultant if you want to train in this, if you want to find out more information about it. It gets you thinking and gets you excited about your involvement in this. I'm going to now wrap it up. I think we have try to keep it under 30 minutes, I hope. And you can listen to this conversation on your way to work or wherever. Thank you so much for joining us. Thank you, Tanya. Thank you, Carsten, for taking the time and explaining this to us. Thank you so much. I hope you guys engage with us and let us know if you have any more questions and watch the videos and get an understanding of what this product is about. We will talk more about it on social platforms. Bye.